I had exactly 5 minutes to pack up 12 years of my life. That is what Richard Vance said to me in front of the entire executive board. He did not yell. He did not slam his fists on the mahogany table. He just looked right through me and gave me 5 minutes. My name is Oliver. I am 55 years old. I live in Chicago, Illinois. Richard Vance is the CEO of Apex Solutions. He is also my father-in-law, or at least he was. I stood there holding the presentation remote for the Q3 infrastructure rollout. I had built the entire cloud architecture for Apex from the ground up. I started when it was just 4 of us in a windowless room. Now we had 19 engineers running a system that handled $50 million in daily transactions, and I was being tossed out like yesterday's trash. Sure thing, I said. I placed the remote on the table. I did not snap. I did not beg. I just turned around and walked out. I headed to the 3rd floor, my floor. I pulled a cardboard box from the supply closet and started packing. Family photos, my mechanical keyboard, a mug from our first major deployment. Security stood by the door watching me. Then I heard chairs scraping. One by one, my team stood up. Julian, Maya, Hector, all 19 of them. They did not say a word. They just started packing too. We walked out together. The HR director, a woman named Patricia, went pale. I heard her mutter to security, "Call the lawyer now." But before I tell you how 20 people walked out of a multi-million-dollar tech firm on a Tuesday morning, I need to take you back to how this nightmare started. It was 4 weeks ago. We were at Richard's estate in the suburbs for his annual summer barbecue. I was standing by the grill, managing 30 burgers and a rack of ribs. My wife, Claire, was sitting on the patio with her younger brother, Nolan. Nolan was 32, wore designer loafers without socks, and had the title of VP of Strategy. He had never strategized a thing in his life. Richard stood up and clinked his glass. "Another record quarter," he announced. "All thanks to Nolan's brilliant oversight on the Horizon project." I almost dropped the tongs. The Horizon project was mine. I had spent 8 months writing the code, securing the patents, and building the infrastructure. Nolan had attended exactly 2 meetings and spent both of them scrolling on his phone. But there was Richard, handing him the credit. Claire clapped along with everyone else. I looked at her, hoping for a glance of solidarity. Nothing. She just sipped her champagne. Later, Richard walked over to me. "You look tired, Oliver," he said. "Maybe it is time you step back. Let the younger generation take the wheel. Nolan is really coming into his own." I kept my eyes on the grill. "Nolan does not know the difference between a server rack and a toaster, Richard." Richard's smile vanished. "He is family, Oliver. You are just a T. Watch your tone." That was the moment I knew. I was not family. I was a tool, a wrench they used to build their empire, and now they wanted to put me back in the toolbox. The next day, I started digging. I logged into the admin dashboard at work. I had root access to everything. I noticed some strange file transfers happening at 2 a.m. Nolan's account was downloading the core source code for the Horizon project. The problem was, Nolan did not know how to run a download script. Someone was doing it for him. I checked the IP logs. It was Richard's private network. They were stealing my code. I had filed the initial patents under my own LLC, a small entity I created years ago before Apex officially acquired the project. Under 35 U.S.C. Section 271, unauthorized use or copying of a patented invention is federal infringement. They thought because I worked for them, they owned me. But my employment contract clearly stated that independent IP developed off company time remained mine. Horizon was built on my weekends. I had the time-stamped commits to prove it. I also found something worse. Richard was bleeding the company. I found hidden ledgers tied to offshore accounts. He was inflating vendor invoices and siphoning the cash to a shell company in the Caymans. Under the doctrine of breach of fiduciary duty, this was corporate suicide. He was defrauding his own investors, and Claire knew. I found emails between her and Richard discussing how to restructure the family trust to exclude me entirely. They were planning a divorce, but they wanted to leave me with nothing. The legal term is dissipation of assets. They were hiding marital funds in offshore accounts before serving me papers. I sat at my desk, the glow of the monitors illuminating the dark office. I had given 15 years to this company and 18 years to that woman. And they were going to slaughter me. I decided right then, if they wanted a war, I would give them a massacre. The next few weeks were a game of chess. I played the tired, compliant husband at home and the obedient worker at the office. But behind the scenes, I was building an ironclad case. I hired a forensic accountant and a ruthless corporate lawyer named Eleanor. We documented every stolen file, every offshore transfer, every forged signature. Oh yes, there were forged signatures. Richard had signed my name on a non-compete waiver and an IP transfer agreement. Under California Penal Code Section 470, forgery is a felony. It made their contracts void ab initio, meaning they were legally dead the second they were signed. They had nothing on me. I also realized Richard was preparing to lay off my entire department to offshore the jobs and boost his Q4 margins. He was going to violate the Warren Act, 29 U.S.C., Section 2101, which requires a 60-day notice for mass layoffs. He was setting up a legal landmine, and he did not even know it. I quietly warned my team. I told Julian and Maya what was coming. I told them I was starting a new firm and I had funding secured. Every single one of them said they were with me. We spent 3 weeks secretly migrating our personal tools, documenting our personal code, and preparing for the exit. We made sure we left Apex's systems perfectly intact. No sabotage, no deleted files. We did everything by the book. We just took ourselves out of the equation. A system is only as good as the people who run it. Without us, Apex was a Ferrari with no steering wheel. Then came the Tuesday morning board meeting. Richard wanted to officially announce Nolan as the new head of technology. He wanted me to hand over the keys in front of everyone. He gave me 5 minutes to clear my desk. He thought it would break me. Instead, I gave him exactly what he wanted. When my team and I walked out, the silence in the building was deafening. 20 of the most critical employees, gone in 60 seconds. We went to a diner down the street, ordered coffee and pancakes, and watched the chaos unfold on our phones. Within 2 hours, the Apex servers started glitching. Nothing major, just routine errors that required human intervention. But there was no human to intervene. Nolan tried to reset the mainframe and accidentally locked the entire executive team out of the financial databases. Panic set in. By noon, my phone was ringing. It was Richard. I let it go to voicemail. Then Claire called. I answered that one. "Where are you?" she demanded. Her voice was shrill. "My dad is losing his mind. The system is down, and Nolan cannot fix it. You need to get back here right now." I took a sip of my coffee. "I am afraid I cannot do that, Claire. I was given 5 minutes to clear my desk. I am no longer an employee. Stop playing games, Oliver. You are ruining everything." "No," I said softly. "I am just watching it fall apart." I hung up. The next morning, Eleanor filed the lawsuits. Not one but 5. First, federal patent infringement under 35 U.S.C. Section 271 for stealing the Horizon Code. Second, violation of the Warren Act for planning a mass layoff without notice. Third, civil action for breach of fiduciary duty regarding the offshore accounts. Fourth, forgery under the Penal Code, rendering all IP transfers void ab initio. And finally, I filed for divorce, citing dissipation of assets. We froze Richard's accounts. We froze Claire's trust fund. The court issued an injunction halting all Apex operations using the Horizon software, which meant Apex could not process a single transaction. They were paralyzed. The fallout was spectacular. Investors panicked. The board of directors held an emergency meeting and demanded to see the offshore ledgers. Richard tried to lie, but Eleanor had already submitted the forensic accounting reports. The board forced Richard to step down immediately. Nolan was fired 10 minutes later. They tried to hire me back as a consultant for $5,000 an hour. I declined. I was too busy running my new company, Zenith Architecture, with my 19 loyal engineers. We had already secured 3 major clients who jumped ship from Apex when the news broke. As for Claire, the judge did not look kindly on her attempts to hide marital assets. The court awarded me the house, my full pension, and 60% of our joint accounts. Richard is currently facing federal investigation for corporate fraud and elder financial abuse. As it turned out, he was also siphoning money from his 85-year-old mother's estate. California Welfare and Institutions Code Section 156-1030 covers elder financial abuse, and the penalties are severe. He lost his empire, his reputation, and his freedom. Nolan is working at a cell phone kiosk at the mall. I drive past it sometimes. I do not wave, I just smile. I am 55 years old, and I have never felt younger. I built a company where loyalty is rewarded, where hard work means something, and where family is defined by actions, not bloodlines. They gave me 5 minutes to clear my desk. It took me less than 5 weeks to clear out their entire legacy. Sometimes the best revenge is not destroying someone, it is simply walking away and letting them destroy themselves. But a few federal lawsuits certainly help speed up the process. And the days following the walkout were a blur of adrenaline and cold brew coffee. We set up Zenith Architecture in a rented co-working space on the west side of Chicago. The 19 engineers who walked out with me were not just employees, they were the founding partners of this new venture. I made sure of that. Every single one of them got equity. Julian, my lead database architect, was appointed CTO. Maya, who could find a needle in a digital haystack, took over as VP of Security. Hector, the quiet genius who rarely spoke but coded like a machine, was our lead developer. We did not have ping-pong tables or cold brew on tap. We had folding tables, extension cords, and a mission. We were going to build the most secure, impenetrable cloud infrastructure on the market, and we were going to do it by poaching every single one of Apex's top clients. Back at Apex, the situation was degrading faster than a corrupted hard drive. I had sources inside the building, people from HR and marketing who were disgusted by Richard's behavior. They texted me updates. Nolan, in his new role as head of technology, had attempted to reboot the main server cluster to clear a bottleneck. Instead of following the 40-step protocol I had written and documented, he just hit the physical power switches. The hard reset corrupted the boot sectors of 3 primary databases. The system went into a fail-safe lockdown. Without my biometric clearance or the encryption keys that were firmly my intellectual property, they were locked out of their own house. Richard tried to bring in outside consultants. They charged him $1,000 a day just to look at the screens and shake their heads. The architecture of Horizon was so heavily layered with proprietary encryption that reverse engineering it would take years. And that was assuming they did not trigger the self-erasing security protocols I had legally embedded to protect my patents under 17 U.S.C. Section 106. Meanwhile, my legal war was just beginning. Eleanor, my attorney, was a force of nature. She did not just file lawsuits, she orchestrated legal symphonies. She called me on a Thursday afternoon. I have the deposition schedule, Oliver. Richard is trying to claim that the Horizon project was built on company time using company resources. He produced a signed NCA and IP assignment contract. I smiled. Let me guess. It is dated August 14th of last year? Yes, Eleanor said. How did you know? Because on August 14th of last year, I was in a hospital bed recovering from appendicitis. I have the medical records, the surgical logs, and the discharge papers. I could barely hold a spoon, let alone sign a 40-page legal document. The signature is forged. Eleanor laughed, a sharp, dangerous sound. Oh, this is going to be fun. Under California Penal Code Section 470, producing a forged document in a legal proceeding is a spectacular way to go to prison. It renders the entire contract void ab initio. Not just voidable, but legally non-existent from the moment of inception. The divorce proceedings were equally satisfying. Claire had hired a celebrity divorce lawyer who specialized in crushing husbands. They came out swinging, demanding alimony, the house, my pension, and a share of my new company. They claimed I had emotionally abandoned the marriage to focus on my career. We countered with the offshore ledgers. Eleanor dropped a 500-page forensic accounting report on their desk during arbitration. It detailed exactly how Claire and Richard had conspired to hide over $4 million in marital assets in a shell corporation in the Cayman Islands. The legal doctrine of dissipation of assets is very clear. When one spouse intentionally wastes or hides marital property in anticipation of divorce, the court will penalize them heavily. The mediator took one look at the wire transfer receipts, all signed by Claire, and advised her lawyer to settle immediately. Her lawyer looked at Claire like she was a walking liability. "You did not tell me about the Caymans," he hissed. Claire looked pale. "I thought it was untraceable," she whispered. "Nothing is untraceable," I said, leaning across the table. "Especially not to the guy who built the network you used to transfer the money." As the legal net closed around Richard and Claire, the industry started to take notice. The tech world is small and news travels fast. The story of a 55-year-old IT architect who got fired, took his entire team, and started a rival firm was too good for the press to ignore. Forbes reached out for an interview. Wired wanted a feature. I declined them all. I did not want fame. I wanted results. And the results were coming in. 2 weeks after the walkout, our first major client signed. It was a massive logistics company that handled supply chains across North America. They had been with Apex for 5 years, but after 3 days of server downtime and zero communication from Nolan, they pulled their contract. They called me directly. Oliver, the logistics CEO, said on the phone, "I do not care what happened between you and Richard. I care that my trucks are sitting idle because Apex cannot process a manifest. Can you fix this?" "Give me 48 hours, I said. We had them fully migrated to our new Zenith servers in 36 hours. That first win opened the floodgates. When other Apex clients saw the logistics giant jump ship, they realized the water was fine. Within a month, we had siphoned 40% of Apex's client base. Our revenue was doubling every week. The 19 engineers were working 80-hour weeks, but no one complained. We were building our own empire. We were answering to ourselves. And every line of code we wrote was a nail in Apex's coffin. But Richard was a cornered animal, and cornered animals do desperate things. Instead of accepting defeat, he tried to play dirty. He hired a private investigator to dig into my past. He tried to find dirt on my team. When that failed, he resorted to the oldest trick in the corporate playbook: intimidation. I received a knock on my door at 10 p.m. on a Sunday. It was Richard. He looked 10 years older. His suit was wrinkled, and he smelled like cheap scotch and desperation. He pushed past me into my living room without an invitation. "We need to talk," he demanded. I left the door open. "You have 2 minutes, Richard, before I call the police for trespassing." He scoffed. "You think you are so smart, Oliver. You think you can just steal my clients and walk away?" "They were not your clients," I said. "They were your hostages. They stayed because of my infrastructure. Now that it is gone, they are leaving. It is called the free market." He pointed a shaking finger at me. "I will destroy you. I will tie you up in litigation for the next decade. I will bankrupt your little startup. I will make sure you never work in this industry again." I just stared at him. "Richard, you are currently under federal investigation for patent infringement under 35 U.S.C. Section 271. You are facing criminal charges for forgery under California Penal Code, Section 470. The Department of Labor is investigating you for Warren Act violations. And the SEC is looking into your offshore accounts. You are not going to tie me up in litigation. You are going to be tied up in federal court trying to stay out of a minimum security prison." He lunged at me. It was a pathetic, uncoordinated swing. I stepped aside, grabbed his arm, and twisted it behind his back. I marched him out the front door and shoved him onto the porch. "Do not ever come to my house again," I said quietly. "The next time I see you, it will be in a courtroom." I shut the door and locked it. I watched through the window as he stumbled to his car and drove away. That was the last time I saw him as a free man. The trial was a bloodbath. Eleanor systematically dismantled Richard's defense. The forged IP transfer agreement was thrown out on the first day. The handwriting expert confirmed it was a crude tracing. The offshore ledgers were admitted into evidence. The jury saw exactly how Richard had defrauded his investors, his employees, and his own son-in-law. But the final nail in the coffin was the elder abuse charge. Eleanor had discovered that Richard had been using his 85-year-old mother's estate to prop up Apex's failing stock price. He had forged her signature on a power of attorney and drained her retirement accounts. California Welfare and Institutions Code Section 15610-30 is unforgiving when it comes to elder financial abuse. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. They found Richard guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $15 million in restitution. Apex Solutions filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy the next day. The company was dissolved, its assets liquidated to pay off creditors. Nolan tried to claim unemployment but was denied because he was fired for gross negligence. Claire's trust fund was seized to cover the restitution, leaving her with a fraction of what she expected. As for me, Zenith Architecture is now a global player. We just expanded to Europe and Asia. Julian is designing our next-generation quantum security protocols. Maya is leading a team of 50 security analysts. Hector finally bought that cabin in Montana he always talked about, and he codes from the porch overlooking the mountains. I am 55 years old, and my life has never been better. I wake up every morning with a sense of purpose. I do not miss the family barbecues. I do not miss the passive-aggressive comments. I do not miss being a tool in someone else's toolbox. They gave me 5 minutes to clear my desk. It was the best 5 minutes of my life. Because in those 5 minutes, I realized my worth. I realized that loyalty is a two-way street and respect is earned, not demanded. And most importantly, I realized that when you have the law, the truth, and 19 brilliant engineers on your side, you do not need to snap. You just need to say thank you, walk out the door, and build something better. The success of Zenith architecture was not just a victory of technology, it was a victory of culture. In the aftermath of Apex's collapse, we became a beacon for top talent in the industry. People had read the articles. They saw what happened when a company treated its most valuable assets like disposable commodities. Engineers, project managers, and security experts from across the country started sending us their resumes. We didn't even have an official HR department yet, but my inbox was flooded with applications. The 19 original members of the walkout became the core leadership team, and they brought a fiercely protective culture to the new hires. We instituted policies that were the exact opposite of Richard's regime. Complete transparency in financials, aggressive profit sharing, and a strict no-asshole rule. If you were brilliant but toxic, you didn't work at Zenith. We wanted builders, not politicians. One of the most satisfying moments during this expansion was a random Tuesday morning, about 6 months after the walkout. Patricia, the former HR director at Apex, the one who had gone pale and muttered about calling the lawyer, walked into our lobby. She didn't have an appointment. She just sat in the waiting area holding a manila folder until I came out to greet her. "Oliver," she said, standing up nervously. "I know I am probably the last person you want to see." I motioned to the conference room. "Come on in, Patricia." We sat down. She slid the folder across the table. When Apex went under, the liquidators didn't care about the internal HR archives. They just wanted the servers and the real estate. I kept copies of the executive communications. Specifically, the emails between Richard and Nolan discussing the planned mass layoffs. They were going to fire 150 people without notice to artificially inflate the stock price base for a potential merger. I opened the folder. It was a goldmine. The Warren Act, 29 U.S.C. Section 2101, strictly mandates a 60-day notice for mass layoffs. Richard wasn't just planning to skirt the law. He was actively plotting to deceive state regulators by classifying the terminations as performance-based. "Why are you giving this to me?" I asked. She sighed, looking exhausted. "Because I stood by and watched him treat people like garbage for a decade. I processed your termination. I saw the look on your face. And I saw 19 people walk out behind you. It woke me up. I want to help the employees who got stiffed in the bankruptcy get their severance." I handed the folder to Eleanor that afternoon. She used it to spearhead a class action lawsuit on behalf of the former Apex employees. Because Richard had committed active fraud, the corporate veil was pierced. We didn't just sue the bankrupt company. We went after Richard's remaining personal assets and the golden parachutes of the other complicit executives. Within 3 months, Eleanor secured a $12 million settlement for the workers. Patricia ended up joining Zenith as our VP of Human Resources. She turned out to be an incredible asset when she wasn't forced to do the bidding of a corrupt CEO. Meanwhile, my personal life was settling into a new, peaceful rhythm. The divorce was finalized. Claire had tried to drag it out, hoping to exhaust my legal funds, but Zenith's rapid success meant I had more resources than she did. The judge's ruling on the dissipation of assets was a masterclass in judicial smackdowns. He systematically stripped Claire of every financial advantage she had tried to secure through deception. I kept the house in Chicago. I kept my pension. I kept 100% of Zenith architecture. Claire moved into a smaller condo in the suburbs. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she was trying to launch a lifestyle brand, but it was struggling. Without Richard's money and influence to open doors, she was finding out how the real world operated. I didn't feel vindictive. I just felt nothing. It was a clean break. The industry, however, wasn't done with the drama. A major tech conglomerate, Horizon Global, caught wind of Zenith's proprietary architecture. They had been trying to build a similar infrastructure for years and had failed. Their CEO flew into Chicago and took me to a steakhouse. He offered me $150 million to acquire Zenith outright. He slid a term sheet across the table, completely confident that a 55-year-old guy who started a company in a co-working space would jump at the payout. I looked at the number. It was generational wealth. It was retired to a private Iceland money. I slid the paper back. I appreciate the offer, I said, but Zenith is not for sale. He frowned, cutting his steak. Everyone has a price, Oliver. What is yours? My price is autonomy, I replied. I spent 15 years building something for a man who didn't respect me, who tried to steal my work and ruin my life. I am never working for anyone else again. My team owns this company. We are going to scale it our way. He respected the answer. We ended up signing a massive enterprise licensing deal instead, which doubled our recurring revenue overnight without giving up a single share of equity. The story of the walkout became a legend in the Chicago tech scene. It became a case study in business schools about the dangers of toxic leadership and the value of intellectual property. People would stop me at industry conferences just to shake my hand. But the true vindication wasn't the money, the press, or the revenge. It was walking onto the floor of Zenith Architecture on a Friday afternoon, seeing 200 brilliant minds collaborating, laughing, and building the future. It was Julian arguing passionately about encryption algorithms. It was Maya mentoring junior developers. It was the hum of service and the energy of absolute freedom. Richard Vance thought he could erase me in 5 minutes. He thought that because I was quiet, because I did my job without demanding the spotlight, that I was weak. He mistook professionalism for submission. It is a common mistake among arrogant men. They confuse the silence of the worker with the silence of the defeated. Looking back, I wouldn't change a single thing. The betrayal, the late nights, the legal battles, it was the crucible that forged Zenith. The law was my weapon, but my team was my armor. Together, we proved that you don't need to scream to be heard. You don't need to play dirty to win. You just need to know your worth, protect your work, and have the courage to walk out the door when the time comes. I am Oliver. I am 55 years old, and my desk is exactly where I want it to be. And the legacy of Apex Solutions became a cautionary tale whispered in boardrooms across the country. But for us at Zenith, it was just the prologue. As we scaled from 200 to over 500 employees, the challenges evolved. We were no longer the scrappy underdog operating out of a co-working space. We were a recognized enterprise-grade security and infrastructure firm. Yet, the core principles established on that first chaotic day remained unchanged. We instituted a policy known internally as the 5-minute rule. It wasn't about firing people. It was a commitment that if any employee felt disrespected, undervalued, or saw an ethical breach, they had 5 minutes of guaranteed, uninterrupted time with any executive, including myself, to address it without fear of retaliation. It kept our culture clean and our communication direct. I often thought about Nolan. After his brief stint at the mall kiosk, he tried to re-enter the corporate world. He leveraged some old frat connections to land a middle management job at a mid-tier logistics firm. I only knew this because that very firm became a Zenith client 6 months later. When we ran our standard security audit on their systems, Maya flagged a series of critical vulnerabilities. It turned out Nolan had been in charge of their cloud migration and had cut corners to save budget, leaving their customer data exposed to brute force attacks. I didn't use this information to seek petty revenge. I simply presented the security audit to their CEO during our quarterly review. The data spoke for itself. Nolan was quietly let go the following week. Competence is a harsh master, and the tech industry eventually filters out those who cannot deliver. As for Richard, federal prison in a minimum security facility in Allenwood, Pennsylvania, was his new reality. He was inmate number 84729-054. He lost his tailored suits, his corner office, and his sycophants. He spent his days working in the prison laundry and his evenings reading legal thrillers, perhaps trying to figure out where his own plot went wrong. His conviction under the Warren Act, the forgery statutes, and especially the elder abuse laws, made him a pariah even among white-collar criminals. The $15 million in restitution wiped out his hidden assets, the offshore accounts, and the luxury real estate. He was bankrupted, both morally and financially. I never visited him. I never wrote to him. Indifference is the ultimate form of closure. Claire eventually left Chicago. The social circles she had cultivated for decades turned their backs on her. In the world of high society, power and money are the only currency, and she had neither. She moved to Scottsdale, Arizona, and started working as a real estate agent. I sincerely hope she found some peace, or at least a sense of perspective. Our marriage had been built on a foundation of convenience and corporate synergy, a merger rather than a partnership. When the corporate structure collapsed, there was nothing left to hold us together. I haven't spoken to her in 3 years and I don't intend to. Today, Zenith Architecture operates on 3 continents. We protect the data of hospitals, financial institutions, and global logistics networks. My 19 original teammates are all wealthy, successful, and deeply respected in their fields. Hector's cabin in Montana is now a massive timber frame lodge where we hold our annual executive retreats. Julian was recently featured on the cover of a major tech magazine, hailed as a visionary in cloud architecture. Maya runs the most elite cybersecurity strike team in the private sector. And me? I still write code. Not every day, but often enough to keep my skills sharp. I still like the logic of it, the absolute certainty of a well-structured algorithm. A computer doesn't care about your last name, your golf handicap, or who your father is. It only cares if the code works. I still have that cardboard box, the one I packed in 5 minutes. I keep it in the corner of my office, a quiet reminder of the day everything ended and everything began. Inside are the same family photos, the mechanical keyboard, and the mug from our first major deployment. I look at it sometimes when the stress of running a global company gets heavy. It grounds me. It reminds me that all of this, the glass offices, the millions in revenue, the industry accolades, is secondary. The real triumph was the courage to say, "Thank you," walk out the door, and trust the people who trusted me. That is the true architecture of success. Everything else is just data. And as the years rolled on, the story of Apex Solutions faded from the front pages of the business journals, replaced by new scandals and fresh cautionary tales. But the ripple effects of what we did that day continued to reshape the industry. We started a foundation, funded directly by Zenith's profits, dedicated to providing legal resources for tech workers facing corporate abuse, IP theft, and wrongful termination. We named it the 5-Minute Foundation. It felt fitting. Eleanor, having tired of the endless grind of corporate litigation, took over as the foundation's director. She brought the same ruthless efficiency to pro bono work that she had brought to my divorce and the Apex lawsuits. Watching her dismantle predatory employers on behalf of junior developers was a source of endless entertainment for our team. I also found myself lecturing occasionally. Not often, just a few guest spots at universities around Chicago. I talked about ethics in software engineering, about the responsibilities of managing large-scale infrastructure, and about the sheer terrifying power of the Warren Act when applied correctly. I always ended my lectures the same way. The code you write is yours. The integrity you bring to your work is yours. Don't let anyone, whether it is a CEO or a family member, convince you that you are just a tool in their toolbox. My relationship with my team deepened from professional camaraderie into something resembling a true family. When Julian got married, I was his best man. When Maya had her first child, Zenith set up a college fund before the kid could even walk. We had built a company that didn't just extract value from its employees, it invested in their lives. It was the antithesis of everything Richard Vance had stood for. In the end, the ultimate victory wasn't the destruction of Apex Solutions. It wasn't seeing Richard behind bars, or Nolan working a dead-end job, or Claire realizing that her lifestyle was a mirage. The ultimate victory was building Zenith Architecture. It was proving that a business could be wildly profitable, technologically superior, and fundamentally decent all at the same time. I am Oliver. I am 55 years old, though I feel like I've lived 3 lifetimes in the span of one. They gave me 5 minutes to clear my desk. I used those 5 minutes to clear my conscience, clear my path, and build a legacy that no one will ever take away.